see possible futures all at once. And in so many futures, our enemies prevail. But I do see a way. There is a narrow way through.
What is happening, everybody? Welcome back to the channel where we love talking about movies and more. I'm your host, Mason Phillips, and today I've got a review for you for Dune Part 2. Now let's talk about the plot. Paul Atreides unites with Chani and the Fremen while seeking revenge against the conspirators who destroyed his family. Facing a choice between the love of his life and the fate of the universe, he must prevent a terrible future only he can foresee. Oh man, so much good about Dune Part 2. I gotta say, I love Dune Part 1. I was there with the hype. I was like, okay, so how good is this movie that everybody's talking about? It's gotta be great, right? And so I go in seeing Dune Part 1, and I will admit, at first, I think I had to sit with it a little bit. It didn't quite hit me like I thought it would. I came out of Dune Part 1 liking it, but needing to think on it. Same thing happened with Dune Part 2. I came out of it liking it, but needing to think on it. It's one of those that it just hits you in a different way. And I love that. It makes you think. It makes you take in all the subversion that they put in the movie, and it's subversion done right. The kind of subversion where you're not left groaning at the end of the film when the credits roll. The kind of subversion that when it hits you, you're like, well, maybe that's not what I would have wanted, but I'm really intrigued to see where they're going here. And I'm really intrigued to see where we're going with Dune Part 2. Denis Villeneuve has a wonderful vision for films like this. The first movie I saw of his was Arrival, and I remember being gripped by that movie so much that it just stuck with me for days upon days. And as I was watching Dune Part 1, the same thing happened. I started thinking about it day after day, remembering moments that I loved and thinking about things that I had missed. And the same thing happened again with Dune Part 2. It's just one of those things that I think I'm appreciating it more and more as each day progresses. And that is, I think, the testament of Denis Villeneuve and his direction in this kind of movie. The vision that he had for this movie is incredible. He knew he had to make it into two movies. It wasn't just going to be Dune and that was it. It got to be Part 1 and Part 2 succinctly. Part 1 ends on such a cliffhanger that you're like, okay, well, we're going somewhere here. We're going on a great journey. And that journey starts right at the beginning of this movie, where we pick up with Paul and he's in the presence of the Fremen, and trying to learn their ways, trying to accept who they are, and he wanting to become more and more like them so that he can then learn a way to get at the people who destroyed his family. So that's the basics of this plot. And then even beyond that, the Fremen people, there's this prophecy that has been constructed by the Bene Gesserit. They've created this myth, this chosen one, this Messiah, this one that's supposed to bring these people, this downtrodden people, out of their terrible situation and into a better place to bring them into a brighter future. That's who he's supposed to be. That's who they're building him up to be. And he doesn't believe in this at all. He's like, no, this is a prophecy that has been constructed by you to fulfill your own needs and your own desires, talking about the Bene Gesserit and what they want. But there might be something to this prophecy. Maybe it's not just fully constructed. Because as Paul is going about his training and as he's going on moving forward and learning the ways of the Fremen, he's continuing to fulfill these prophecies. But again, is he fulfilling it? Or is he just going on in such a way that it's seen as incredible to these people? And it's really great. Javier Bardem's character, he says this line in response to Paul. Paul says he doesn't believe in this prophecy. And Javier Bardem's character says, it doesn't matter if you believe it or not, I do. And whether or not Paul is this great chosen one or not, it doesn't matter to him. But For Paul, he starts to kind of lean into this a little bit. He's not wanting to be this leader for these people to free them. He's wanting to do it in order to give him power in a place of which he'll have people behind him to take down the ones who destroyed his family in the first film. That's his ultimate goal. It has nothing to do with whether or not he's going to accept this role as their Messiah, as their chosen one. As we get further and further into it, not to spoil anything, because I'm not going to go into heavy spoilers here, I'll just say that Paul is willing to go down such a path to lose himself and who he is to get what he wants most of all. Even to lose the ones that he's chosen to love so that his ultimate goal can be fulfilled. We've seen this in Star Wars. We saw it with Anakin and how he became Vader. I'm not saying Paul's going to become Vader because I don't really know the full story behind Dune. I haven't read the books. I'm just going movie by movie here. But it's really intriguing to see how he may take this prophecy and maybe switch it to his own means. I'm really intrigued to see where this is going to go. So I love the plot. It really makes you think. You stick with it. I love the direction. The acting. Each actor is bought in here. Zendaya did an amazing job. Timothée Chalamet really brings it, leads this movie. He did an amazing job in this film. So I have to applaud him for that. I was bought in for everything he was doing. And then at the end, but not to spoil anything again, but when he really, well, let's say he buys more into this prophecy, he's going to be this leader for these people. And there's this monologue that takes place at the end. And it's just so gripping with his performance. I love the cinematography of this movie. This is just one of those that you look at it and you just feel like you're in a whole other world. It doesn't feel fake. It's not a lot of green screen. It's not the volume technology. It feels like we were on a location, a new planet. We were on Arrakis, and I felt like we were really there. There was never a moment where I felt like this was bad CGI. I never felt that we were ever in a moment of this is a computer world. This is a fake world. I can't touch it. I felt like everything we saw in this movie was super tangible, and I loved that aspect of it. I can't say that we get that enough. We don't get that enough. Denis Villeneuve was so adamant that this is going to be a world that you have to feel like you can touch, that you can feel. I loved that aspect of it. It was so great to see something like that portrayed on screen. Love the cinematography here. The music, Hans Zimmer's score, is incredible. I mean, I found myself going back, pulling up a playlist on my phone and just listening to that score over and over again. They wanted you to feel something tangible. So they went out of their way to create these sounds that didn't exist. They went above and beyond to make sure in both the cinematography, the direction, the acting, the music, it makes you feel. Also, don't want to skip over, going back to the acting, Austin Butler. My gosh, that guy, he brought it in this movie. He doesn't even come into the movie until, I'd say, about halfway into the movie. And so I was getting into it wondering, he's like, well, I know Austin Butler's in this. I saw him in the trailer. And so where is he? We finally get to him. That guy's a psycho. And I did think for a second, because I didn't really know where the story was going, he may kill Paul. And he made me believe it every step of the way. All the actors did. There wasn't a moment where I wasn't buying into somebody's performance. Everybody was directed beautifully. Everybody brought it beautifully. And I cannot say that we see that enough. Again, we don't see that enough. Definitely the best movie I've seen all year. I may see a better movie this year. I may see a movie that I think was better than this. But the feel of this movie, I don't think is going to be captured by another film. I'd love to be proven wrong. But the acting, cinematography, direction, everything, the world building behind it all, can't give this movie enough praise for all of that. I loved this movie. But it wasn't entirely perfect. Let's get into the mix section. Alright, so there were a few things that were kind of mixed with Dune Part 2. Overall, I really enjoyed this movie, but I think the thing that I was mixed on the most, it's a slow burn of a film. You kind of got to stick with it. I was about an hour or so into this movie, and I was just thinking to myself, did I get too hyped up for this movie? Is this one of those that like everybody seemed to love, but I seemed to be the only one that didn't? Not that I wasn't liking what I was watching, but I wasn't like to this level of like excitement and super like amount of joy for what I was watching. And then that final part of the movie kicks in, and that's what makes it all worth it. About the last hour or so, it just kicks in, it goes full throttle, and then you realize, thinking back, this is why This is why this movie was made. And this is why it took so long to get going, why it seemed to drag a little bit. And that's the thing. I do think the movie has some pacing issues. I think it does drag a bit. My opinion only, this is the way I saw it, the way I viewed it. When I go back and watch this movie a second time, I'm probably going to think differently, knowing what I know now, and I may think this movie was paced amazingly, but I gotta say, as far as the mixed portion of this movie goes, the pacing, I think, could be sped up just a little bit. Not a whole lot, because this is one of those that you want to sit with, you want to think about, that just probably didn't need to be almost 3 hours long. It clocks in about 2 hours and 40 some odd minutes. It probably could have been 2 hours and 30, 220. Maybe could have shaved off a few things here and there. But as far as the mixed section goes, it's not a big knock against this movie. Really liked the movie in the end. I just think it had a few pacing issues. Maybe you could have tightened up one or two things here and there. That's all. So what was bad with this movie? I don't think anything was bad with this movie. Personally, nothing. Personally, nothing was bad about this movie. I enjoyed my entire time with this movie. I had a lot of great things to say about it. One little thing in the mixed section, but I don't have anything bad to say about this movie, guys. I loved it. It's not perfect, but it's up there. It's a really good movie. Really good movie. Go check it out if you haven't already. The opening weekend just happened. It's crushing it at the box office. It's having a great performance so far across the board. And I'm excited to talk about movies. I've always been excited to talk about movies, but it's when you go see movies like this, it makes you excited to go talk about the next one, to go see the next one, to look forward to the next one. So guys, I don't have anything in the bad section of this movie. Overall, this movie is pretty great. I really like this movie. I'm echoing what I just said in the bad section. But again, there wasn't a bad part of this movie. I just think it had a few pacing issues. Maybe you could have tightened up a few things here and there. It's not a perfect movie. Again, I was sitting with it for about an hour, thought, did I get myself too hyped for this movie? Do I need to rein in my expectations? Do I need to come in with lower expectations next time? And maybe I do. Maybe I should have. And maybe you should too. But I'm also saying give this movie a chance as you go through the first hour. If you're not feeling it, stick with it. It will be worth it. I promise. Now, you may not think it's the best movie you've seen in the last year or so. I don't personally think it's the best movie I've seen in the last year or so. But it's up there. It's got to be in at least the top 5. It's got to be in the conversation. And stick with it. Stick with it. The ending is worth it. The ending is worth it. It makes it all pay off. And I'm so intrigued to see where we go in the next movie. I can't wait to see the next movie. I'm actually more excited to see the next installment in the Dune franchise than I was when I came out of the end of Dune Part 1. And that one left off on a clear cliffhanger, knowing we were going on a clear journey in the next movie. I cannot wait to see what we got next. Final thoughts. Love this movie. I'm going to give this movie a ranking. It's going to be a 4.5 out of 5. Or an A- on the letter scale. Now, A's not perfect. I could have gone A+. But it's right under there. It's got a few things. Need to rein in, maybe. A few things. Tighten it up. Overall, great movie. Go check it out. Do not deprive yourself of this movie-going experience. You might want to deprive yourself of that bucket at AMC Theaters. Wouldn't recommend getting that thing, but I would recommend going to see this movie. I think a lot of people are getting super hyped about this movie, and for good reason. And for good reason. Go check out this movie. Let me know what you thought about it down in the comments. And with that, guys, subscribe, hit the bell icon so you don't miss a single video on this channel. I cannot wait to show you what I've got cooking next for content coming later in this week and the weeks to come. I hope you all have an awesome and a fantastic day, and I'll see you in the next video.